I'm so glad that I get to follow you, because actually what I wanted to talk about is not really graduation, which is what the email said, but it is about how we as parents with naturally high mouths, some higher than others, support our children who have a naturally lower mouth and encourage that lower mouth. And the way that I started thinking about this was many years ago. I was working at Microsoft, and we used to have all hands every month for the marketing department. And so I had asked Guy Kawasaki to come and speak to the team. And for those of you that aren't familiar with Guy, he was one of the early marketers at Apple. He was the first sort of formally coined the term evangelist, and really just an amazing guy, as an investor now. And I called him and I asked if he would speak to the marketers, and he said that he would be thrilled to. And he asked if I wanted him to do sort of one of the more traditional marketing presentations, or if I wanted him to do his commencement address. To which I said, I have no idea what you're talking about, but sure, do the commencement address. We're marketers, we can flow with it. I'm sure it's got to be interesting. And so he came and he gave the commencement address that he had given in 1993 to the graduating class at Palo Alto High School. And it was absolutely amazing and had so many different sort of aha moments for everyone. And as I was looking back at it, there were so many points that he made which were so relevant, and even more so today, as we as parents look at our children, hopefully they're going to be graduating from the New Wave High School. Anyway, his commencement speech was called Hindsight, and like many great speeches, he used the David Letterman top 10 as his metaphor. And I'm not going to walk you guys through all top 10, but I wanted to take you through a few of them that I just found so interesting. The first was, live off your parents as long as possible. And he said this in the most beautiful way. It wasn't sort of how we would think about it today, the Y Combinator, you're 17, you're 18, you need to go and you need to do your first startup now. It was, absolutely the opposite of that. It was, this is the last time in your life that you're going to be subsidized, and you better make the most of it. And so as most of us in the room thought about, we had taken AP courses when we were in high school, and I graduated college in under 4 years, and most of us sort of looked at each other and realized we really screwed up on that one. And what he actually said was, you're going to work for the rest of your lives. Don't rush through this part. Now is the time to suck life into your lungs before you have a mortgage, kids, car payments. Take whole semesters off to travel overseas. Investigate your passion on your parents' dime or dollar, whatever it takes. They won't ask questions. Your goal should be to extend college to at least 6 years. How much felt about now? Delay as long as possible the inevitable entry into the workplace and into a lifetime of servitude to bozos who know less than you do but who make more money. Also, you shouldn't deprive your parents of the pleasure of supporting you. The next thing he said was pursue joy, not happiness, which I think is a lot of what you were talking about. He talked about how happiness was predictable, and it comes from doing the predictable things, from getting the right job, from having a car that you like, or sort of proceeding down a normal path. But he talked about joy and how, by contrast, it's very unpredictable. And it comes from pursuing interests and passions that don't necessarily result in joy, that have some sort of risk associated with them. And I think that, as I thought about that point, I thought about the responsibility that we have as parents. And that's that all of our kids have their own sort of natural talents. And it's very easy for us to fall into the sort of mode of supporting those natural talents and helping our children grow those. But what's much harder is to find the things that maybe our children aren't as naturally inclined to do, and to support them and push them into pursuing those as well. Because the type of joy that they'll get from succeeding in those endeavors is much more profound and meaningful than the happiness that they'll get from doing the things and succeeding at the things that come naturally to them. So his next point was challenge the known and embrace the unknown. I don't think we need to talk about that. We all live in Nueva. The biggest problem is teaching our children not to challenge the known, like brushing your teeth or bedtime. But why? I can talk about why. The next thing that he said was learn to speak a foreign language, play a musical instrument, and to play non-contact sports. And so clearly he was talking about, things that are going to benefit you for the long term, long after college, and into your golden years. What I'd like to add to that is learn to cook. Zip up my shirt. And really that's for a lot of different reasons. I studied Japanese in college, and I had this really amazing professor. And she used to have us over to her house, and we used to cook traditional Japanese meals. And she would teach us while we were cooking. And she said that that was the best way to learn a language, was from being immersed in that culture, from really, sort of understanding it. And I think that food is one of these things that universally unites everyone. No one goes a day without thinking about food, without talking about food. Now it's part of our national consciousness with, whether it's Michelle Obama or just what we serve at the Nueva Cafe. But it's something that even at an early age, has this really profound effect. So there have actually been studies that have been done recently, and those studies say that one of the most important things that you can give your children to guarantee that they'll be successful is for the family to have a meal together. And it can be breakfast, it can be dinner, it can last 20 minutes, which is about the attention span of my son, it can be takeout, preferably cooked. But that time as a family, which is sort of united through food, is a time that you kind of disconnect and you talk and you spend time understanding each other. So while your kids are studying their foreign languages, taking their guitar lessons, and playing soccer, give them a knife. Teach them to cook. Take them to the farmer's market on the weekends. Let them taste and let them touch the food and see what textures they like. Very. I have this. I know. And then let them take those things that they've bought at farmer's market home and let them use that knife and let them do whatever they want with it. Let them cook, because it's something that they will take with them long after they stop golfing and playing tennis and and doing all of these other things, and will continue to connect them with people and with the community. Next, Guy talked about learning to like yourself or change yourself until you can like yourself. And this was sort of a whole thing that he went off on, which was really talking about being healthy and drugs, and we're not going to talk about that because I think enough. Some things should be left unsaid. I grew up in LA, so we just won't go there. But his next point was about marriage. And he talked about waiting. Waiting until you're in your 30s, because you should experience all sorts of things before that. Again, I sort of broke this tenet of his, and Papa and I got married when we were 25. So we got married a lot younger than most of our friends. That was just 10 years ago, right? Yeah. But Papa and I made a commitment after our sort of marriage commitment to each other. And that was, we talked about what we were going to pass on to our children. And we know there are things that we pass on from generation to generation. We also know that we're going to, pass on negative things. We're going to pass on whatever baggage our parents passed on to us and our grandparents passed on to them. And so we made this commitment to each other that we would create entirely new neuroses to pass on to that we would break the cycle of everything else that had sort of been mindlessly passed on, and we would at least do it knowingly. The next thing that Guy said was to enjoy your family and friends. That's actually the last thing before they were gone. And you can imagine how addressing a group of 17-year-olds, he talked about hindsight. For us, I think it's a little bit different, and we can think about that same statement with respect to our kids. And that's that in all of the things that we're talking about here, I think there's this sort of underlying theme of enjoying your children today. Enjoy them whether they have high or low MAU, and sort of embrace all of that, because they're growing up so fast. And they probably will not think that we're cool again until they have their own children and then can appreciate everything that we have imparted on them until then. The rest of the top 10 I can give to you guys or point to the link for travel more. That's it.